Do pop songwriters get better shares than urban songwriters? Let's take a listen to what Ray Daniels has to say.
White people, pop, everybody eats. If 8 of us did the song, 8 of us share. When it's black folks, y'all figure out what y'all giving each other. That's how we were taught. I didn't start getting rich until I adopted other ways of doing business. We did this record on Nicki Minaj only. Chris Brown, Nicki, Drake. It was a big moment. Lil Wayne. We did that record, right? If I would have did that record with an urban producer, I probably would have got 5%.
Dr. Luke.
Did it with Dr. Luke.
Pop Splits.
Pop Splits. First, shout out to Luke. Luke don't fucking play. Luke said there's 7 writers on the record. We split it 7 ways. He got 13%. Everybody got 13%. We walked away because I had 2 writers with 26%. I walked away with 26% of a hit record. If I would have did that on the urban side, I would have had to fight to get 10%. So what I noticed was, I'm like, damn.
I didn't know about Pop Splits either until like about a year into the business.
But they don't teach us that.
Jeremiah Thomas, he taught me about that because it was like a pop record. And then I just remember always having to negotiate splits. When it was a pop record, he's like, no, it's Pop Splits. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, everything down the middle.
Everything down the middle. We ain't got to argue no more.
I was like, oh, so if it's like 5 writers, 4 writers, 6 writers, just everybody gets equal amount? He's like, yep, that's it.
Now watch this. You know how many big hit producers on the urban side I sat in the room with and said, yo, why don't you do Pop Splits? It'll be better. And it's like, what's the fuck I would share my money with some of y'all niggas? I'm getting my 50%. That's why you're begging the biggest writers to come in the room. See, Pop Splits also is great for the songwriter because you already got to fight to get paid. And at least you know you're going to get your publishing and it's going to be done right. And you ain't got to say, I wrote 4 words.
All right, he is right. He is definitely right by the logic of what he's saying. When you have a record with 7, 8 writers on it, it's almost best just to split the thing down the middle. Okay, I understand that a lot of producers, they want to say, hey, I made the beat, so I get 50%, and I should keep my 50%, and the rest of you writers should just go ahead and figure it out from there, which that is something that is almost like kind of fairly new because, back in the day, a lot of times, producers were the people who actually put together the record, and then, you had people who played certain instruments. They might have got some royalties, or a lot of times they might have got, cashed out. But back then, a lot of people used to just split the royalties. That's why they call it royalty split, because they used to split the royalties pretty fairly. However, once kind of like the hip hop urban producer kind of came into the fold, where you were doing all the sounds, making all the beats and everything, that's when the split started becoming a little bit lopsided in a sense. However, I will say this: I've worked with a pop producer before. We were doing a song for an artist that they had already demoed the record. The song was sitting for about 3 years. And this is a song that we were doing with Silento at the time. And the record label sent it over, and they were like, what do you think about this song? I was like, hey, song is pretty cool. I said, we should probably cut it and see how it turns out. So we went to LA, we cut the record. Everything went good. The label loved the song. They were calling me maybe about 2 or 3 weeks after we cut the record, like, hey, we really like this record. We want to make this a second single. And I was like, cool. Before we just jump the gun, let's go ahead and get the splits. Now, I knew that there were, I think, 5 other writers on the record. There were 5 other writers on the record. And I was like, hey, I was really just looking to get 10%, for the artist. I was just looking to get 10% because he did add some ad libs. He did change a few things around. He said something in the actual session. And plus, he's the artist. So, just try to give the artist something. So I'm thinking, hey, this is the pop side, because it really was a popular, pop style record. I'm thinking that they're going to be generous with the splits because, this record was sitting for 3 years, and we came in, the record label loves the song. The record is not going to be dormant anymore, so they should be generous with the splits. So I go to call the producer, and he sends me to his business manager. Now, any other time before this, I could talk to him directly, no issues, no problems. He sends me to the business manager. Then I call him, he doesn't pick up, but then he emails me, which I knew. I was like, oh, he's going to email me because he wants to keep a record of what he says. So he emailed me, and he told me that they didn't have any space on the record to give up any publishing. That's what they told me. So you know what your boy did? Your boy politely told everybody, we're not going to do the record then. Oh my goodness, the record label was in shambles because from what I hear, they had already prepared to send the producer money and everything before we even got the splits cleared. Crazy situation. The A&R was scrambling. Everybody was like, they're like stuck because I said, no, we're not doing it. And I knew his lawyer wasn't going to let it happen. So I was like, no, we're not going to do the record. If you guys cannot, provide any splits available for us, we're not going to do it. And the record died because I was not going to be taken advantage of. And with what Ray is saying on this Manager's Playbook podcast, what he's saying is, it's better when you have multiple writers like that. It's almost better to just get even splits. And in that way, nobody has to sit here and fight for, I need 3%, I need 5% or whatever, because at the end of the day, if everybody gets the same splits, everybody's probably going to win better in this situation. However, in this one particular situation, it wasn't like that. Now, every other time we did a popular record, like with Darwin, which that record is now 2 times platinum right now, is Darwin featuring Silento. I wrote the verse for him. That record, they allocated 20% for that record. And what I did was I took 8% of the record and I gave Silento 12% of that record. I could have took more, but at the end of the day, he was a kid and I want to make sure that, he got a fairly decent portion of the record, because even though I did write it, they wanted him as the artist on it. So, me being a good guy, I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and flub over no, writing splits like that. At the end of the day, I took a tally of who was on the record. I was like, okay, cool. They allocated 20% for us. I went ahead and took 8. I gave them 12. At the end of the day, sometimes it's not about getting everything. It's about just being fair, and sometimes it's being generous in certain situations to keep everybody happy in the situation. And that's what I did. We had another record that we did with a young lady. The record's called Girl in the Mirror, which that one has like 400,000 or 500,000 streams right now. It's definitely double platinum, but we haven't got any of our plaques, anything for it. I'm not sure if they even submitted it to even be platinum or whatever. But it's called Girl in the Mirror by Silento. We did that record. They allocated, I believe, like 20%. Straight off the rip, no problems. And then we split that share, no issues. Because any other time that we did this with like maybe an urban producer, it was like, so what y'all want? You know what I'm saying? On the pop side, it was like, cool, we got this many writers, this is what we got allocated. This is what it is. We're going to split everything pretty much down the middle, and that's what they pretty much did. We did another record called Volcano with the Vamps. There, that was a whole band, so that was a lot of splits going, all over the place. We ended up getting fair splits with that. So, I can say from what Brother Ray is saying is that is true. When it comes to like the pop rock side, I don't think it's a white or black thing. I don't think it's that, but I understand what he's saying. I know some of y'all are like, well, it's white people, it's black. It's not that. I understand what he's saying. It's just like on that pop side, it seems like it's just more organized when it comes to just sharing splits, for songwriters rather than on the urban side. Because on the urban side, it's like 50%, give me my 50, give me my 50. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is what I will say. Now, on the urban side, I never really had that issue because a lot of times I work with just a single artist, or it was like with the Taylor Girls, it was like a group. On the urban side, it's kind of like understood, like, okay, if we're doing this, if it's just one artist or maybe 2 artists, okay, cool, we get, the split like that. Now, when, with me, when it's like multiple people on a track, me as being a producer, I'm not going to sit here and try to bleed every penny out of a track. That's just me. If we have 4 people on a track, it's better to just split that 4 into 25%. It keeps everybody happy. Because if I can have, me, myself happy, if I can have the actual artist happy, and I can have maybe the two other writers that might be on the record happy, and those writers are dope, why not give them, 25% a piece if it's 4 people on the record, and they know, like, hey, if I work with Bolo, he's going to make sure I get fair splits. He's going to make sure I eat. Because, in a lot of these situations, these writers don't even get any upfront money. They may pay the producer, but they don't even pay these writers upfront money. So a lot of these writers are depending on their actual publishing, their royalty split, which might not come from at least 9 months down the road after the song is even big. While the artists out here doing shows and producer got their, their upfront money, a lot of these writers are kind of like just hanging around like, hey, let me, I need to get some money. And they might have to wait some months before they actually get their money to where everything is starting to actually come in. And then from there, once they get a few more placements, then things can kind of start, rolling in from that point. But yeah, even when the song is big in the beginning, a lot of times these songwriters don't get any royalties until maybe like, 7, 8, 9 months down the road. It takes some time. So if I do a situation like that, everybody's going to think, hey, let's go back to Bolo because he's fair with his splits. Case in point, we did a song with my guy Tom G, Lil Duval, and it's called Chameleon. We did a song called City Boy with it, and it was actually an original song. We remade the song, and then Lil Duval got on it, and Chameleon got on it, and it got debuted at the BET Hip Hop Awards, I believe, in 2019, I believe. And that song is still doing pretty good. We had it on a few TV shows or whatever. It was cool. Now, you got to think, there was an original producer on that record. And even though I remade the beat, I wanted to make sure that original producer, even though he did not even touch the song, I wanted to make sure that he had got some publishing. So at that point, we had 5 people on the record. And we made sure that everybody got a pretty fair split on the record. And that's the way it is. I didn't just take the full 50%. I wanted to make sure that the other producer got their fair share, even though there were people telling me that he wasn't really the real producer of it. It was somebody else or whatever. So what I did was I just made sure that pretty much everybody got a fair split and everything just worked out smoothly. Everything got done. We didn't sit here and hold up the record. It was done. We're out the way. And I could have easily took the whole 50 and said, no, I did the beat. I did the remix. No, I wanted to reach back and help out a producer who I respected, number one, and I wanted to make sure that he got a piece of the record. I don't know what happened before that, but all I know is he was the one that I knew that produced that original record. So I wanted to reach back and say, hey, here, get a piece of this publishing, man. But it's that simple. And I know a lot of people want to say, hey, man, you got to get as much money as you can, man, because if you don't get as much, it's a dog-eat-dog world out here. If you don't get as much publishing as you can, you know what I'm saying, you're not going to be able to make it. That's not me. My thing is, I believe your blessings come when you do the right things. And at first, that's the way I used to be. I'm like, I'm finna get all my publishing, I'm finna do this and I'm finna do that. But you got to understand the consequences of that. You don't want to seem greedy. If you seem greedy to people, then that signals to a lot of people that, hey, they'll do anything to just get any type of money. And I don't really want to work around that. If you're a person that is a fair person, and it's not necessarily giving up all of your publishing, but if you're the type that says, hey, you know what, let me just allocate a little bit for, a few of these writers and stuff like that, then that makes you seem like a very honorable person. That's the same situation that happened with me and Polo the Don. Me and my guy, we ended up doing a record, and Polo liked the record. He wanted to put it up with his artist. And what we did is me, the writer, and Polo, which he actually added some stuff to the beat as well. We split that like 30-30-30. And then the writer, even though she didn't write it, she went ahead and got 10%. We left some money for the writer. I mean, for the artist as well. So, the writer got 30%, I got 30%, Polo got 30%, and the writer got 10%. Even though she didn't write anything. But we still want to allocate some money for the writer, and that was easy. He said that. I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's no problem. Let's do it. Because in a lot of situations, a lot of these writers don't even get anything because they don't write the record. They just perform it. And sometimes they may get a few percentage points if they're the type that says, hey, I want to bring this particular writer in to write my verse, or I want to bring this particular producer in, and then they kind of executive produce or produce the record. If the writer does that, that's one thing. But if you're just a writer that goes in and you just basically copying the words that somebody else says, then are you really entitled to anything? But at the end of the day, you still want to go ahead and say, hey, even though that we put this whole thing together and we just placed you on this record, you get something. And what that does is like, it tells the actual artist like, hey, hey, thank you. I know I'm not really doing anything, but thank you. So now that we did that, the artist now can not only just get their mechanicals, which they're going to get that, but they can actually get publishing now. And it just makes things so much better. Now, when it comes to the pop side, I haven't really dealt with that, even though I just mentioned a few songs I dealt with it. I don't really deal with that side. I deal with the urban side. And a lot of the artists I deal with are maybe just like one artist. Okay. And a lot of times I would deal with a main artist and a feature. Now, this is something a little different. If you're dealing with a main artist and a feature, then they're going to have to work that out. Okay. If I'm dealing with a group, then we can kind of work that out as well. And if I'm dealing with a artist, two writers, two producers, stuff like that, then usually we'll just kind of split, all the publishing royalty splits like that. But if you're a producer and you're working with a particular artist and then they put a feature on the record, then I typically say to the artist, I'm like, listen, okay, I produced the beat. You came up with the concept of the song. You want this feature. So I'm not really entitled to that feature, to be honest with you. That's just me. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm not really entitled to the feature. I would say, hey, artists, ask your feature what they want. And then from there, I can maybe adjust a few things or not, just to make things easy. So instead of me getting a full 50%, if the artist says, well, man, he's pretty cool with me, I at least want to get him like 20%. Then what we can say is, okay, cool. Me being a producer, I want 40. The artist, you get 40. And then the feature, he'll get 20. Simple as that. Done. Or if he might say, look, man, I'm trying to get 45%, then I can adjust mine. I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll take 45. You take 45. He gets 10. It's simple as that. Okay, let's just complete the pie here and let's get everything up and running. Get the lawyers to sign these contracts, which I'm going to talk about that in another video, and let's get this thing going. So I've had one bad situation on the pop side, but other than that, everything has been very fair, and I can say it's been true. I've worked with some actual other, producers and stuff when I've had some artists, and I've tried to negotiate some splits before. And sometimes these people would not budge on the urban side. I can say that, in more situations than less, when they're set on the urban side, they're pretty much set. But I haven't really had too many issues. But from what I know in the industry, from what I've gained and from what I've heard over the years, doing a pop record is much more easier to get your money, get your bread from than it is doing on the urban side. And I can vouch for what Ray is saying. Even though I did have my one little situation, but everything else, no problems, no issues.